also want to thank those who have come. This has been a real example of the people redressing their government for a grievance, and I commend you for it. I spent all day Saturday and Sunday thinking about researching and pondering and praying about 277. And listening to the testimony and all, it has reinforced my fundamental conclusion that this really is unnecessary. It is an overreach of government, even of the best of intentions, particularly in light of the high number of volunteer vaccination rate in California, the declining personal exemptions that we saw since 2109. And I think there's been an absence of evidence that the small number of unvaccinated have caused or are responsible for an epidemic or a health emergency. I think that really stretches the facts to the point, I think, of really almost being sort of a scare tactic. This is troubling to me. I also think that there must be a space in California law for parental and personal and religious exemptions. And I think the fact that we are seeing so many people from all across the state come here in opposition is because I believe that the Sacramento and the political establishment have taken a step too far. And I think that is one of the reasons why we see the response that we do. And I also think that this really is excessively punitive because it does deny a public education, both in a public school and a private school. That is troubling to me. I'm not personally or religiously opposed to vaccinations. All my children, grandchildren, they've all been vaccinated. But I am opposed to the unnecessary and punitive dictates of government. And I think this bill goes too far, and I will have to vote no.
My biggest issue is the loss of freedom. In our Constitution, the individual is sovereign over the state. And I know that's come a long way, and we've forgotten about that. But informed consent is a human right. It's been stated that there's a responsibility in the freedom of choice, and therefore those choosing to limit vaccines face the consequence of not being able to send their child to school. So therefore they choose not to, then they have the responsibility, then they don't go to public school. This will hurt the underserved community more than anybody else. And according to the ACLU in their letter, education is a fundamental right under California Constitution. However, on the flip side, there's also a responsibility on the state when it mandates or forces medical treatment in order to attend school, and in other places we hear about getting a job or other things. To explain that, and it kind of goes in line with my questioning earlier, there's a reason there has historically been various exemptions to any mandatory vaccine law. Simply said, a parent must sign a consent form for treatment of their child to get a vaccine. The doctor won't sign the consent form, nor can they legally do so. This is because the parent or guardian is 100% responsible for the health and well-being of their child. If this was not so, the state would allow the treatment without the authorization of the parent. Therefore, it follows that the parent then is legally responsible for all liability or injury that might occur. If the state is going to coerce or force parents to vaccinate in order for their children to attend school, then the state should take on that liability of that mandate. So I will be voting no on this bill.
I believe that when we look at the right of education and how that impacts the children, and then we take the impact of what's going on with what we had the situation in Disneyland, does that really rise to the level that we've talked about today as far as a compelling reason to be able to strip away the parental rights, to be able to force the immunizations. I don't know that this is brought really to that level at this point. I do believe that Assembly Bill 2109, with the 19% increase in immunizations, was a great move over the last 11 months. I would really like to see that go on for a longer period of time, and perhaps we really target those pockets of areas that we know are not really looking to immunize their children for a longer period of time with a greater reach of education before we take away all the rights of the parents across the whole state because of that pocketed area situation. So I really did approach this with an open mind. I did listen to both sides very openly. I did not take a position until this point. And I really do respect all the constituents that took 7-hour bus rides to come out here, spent the whole day in the hallway, and spent the time to be able to take their moment at the microphone. It's democracy at its best, and I really appreciate everybody coming out here, and I will not be able to support this bill.
I go back to the whole issue of the freedom issue, and actually looking at the the majority rule, but recognizing there's the minority right also. So because of that, and also the additional issue of the compelling state interest to take away the ability of a parent to have the freedom to raise their children, I don't think has been exhibited, especially by our own fact sheet from the California Department of Public Health, who clearly said that we have adequate immunization coverage. By our own statement from our own state, they're saying we don't have a problem because it's not been clear to me that we have a problem, because I think we still need to take something like this to a public process by not just taking an amendment verbally that we're going to see on the floor without having people to speak up. For those reasons, I will not be supporting this bill.